Hi, I'm Joseph Ike. You're welcome to Literati on News Central, a show that looks at what's happening in the literary space in Africa and beyond. We talk to writers, publishers, journalists, anyone who's involved in the process that brings the wonderful pieces of literature that we've come to read and love to us. With me in the studio today is none other than Sulaiman Addonia. Sulaiman is an author who now resides in Brussels. He is born of an Eritrean mother and an Ethiopian father. Was a refugee for a time outside of his home, or where home was, had to live in Saudi Arabia, and then finally in London, where he completed his education at the University College of London. He has written 2 novels. But the novel we're going to be talking today about is the wonderful Silence is My Mother Tongue. Sulaiman, you are welcome to the show, and today's show is brought to you by Glow. Sulaiman.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, this book, like I told you, is an intriguing book. I've read through it once, and I'm being very honest with you, I've actually started reading it again because I felt like I missed some of the nuance in the book. There's so many lines that you just have to sit with for a while and think about, wait, I think I missed the point of this at first. It goes further than I would have expected for it to go. Is that intentional?
I lived with this book for 10 years.
10 years?
And I've literally, when I say I was working and writing on it every day, that is not an exaggeration. And so, yes, I mean, I went deeper. I was suffering insomnia, sleepless nights. I've lost so much to just, to write this book. And to me, it wasn't about whether the book is going to be great or not. It's just being faithful to the book, being faithful to the characters. And I've given them my all. And so I think, like, part of the depth, I hope that was like one of the intention when I came out of it, that readers will discover layers of the book as they go through it again and again.
Okay, good, because I was starting to feel like, wait, is it me, or is this intentional? So the book is very layered, and it comes across as such, and it's set in a refugee camp, and we know that part of your history crosses through. Now, I guess the question that we would be interested in knowing is, how much of this book is autobiographical in nature?
I think I always believe that every book you do, it has elements of your life in it, And that's because we authors anyway, I'm one of those authors who work with feelings, The feelings and emotions are incredibly important to me. And so there are things I use of my own life experience to kind of, if you like, to bring me to that moment where I feel in tune with one characters. But the whole book is set in a refugee camp, which is quite similar and to the one I lived when I was a refugee in Sudan, because I love working with real settings. It does something to my writing, and that's maybe it's because it evokes things in me. And Lorca says, like, nostalgia is at the heart of every art, and I feel that.
We were discussing earlier before the show, and I told you I heard your voice distinctly after I met you. I heard your voice in one of the lines in the book where one of the characters in the book, when he had just gotten to the refugee camp, was so, there's nothing here, there's nothing here, and I could just see you saying that. Is that what it's like? Is that really what life is like in a refugee camp? Or tell us what life is like living in a refugee camp.
So when we got to this refugee camp, actually, so it's quite a complicated story. So we fled after the massacre and the murder of my father in Eritrea. We fled to Sudan. So we went to a refugee camp, and then we managed to get out of the refugee camp to the city, and then suddenly one day the Sudanese army knocked on our doors, armed police. I was very young. I was like, I think 5, 6 or something like that in the morning, and they said, okay, we're gonna disperse you to another refugee camp. And that's the refugee camp where actually the story is set. And we arrived there like 12 a.m. and there was absolutely nothing. No official was waiting for us, nothing, you know. So you see it, yeah. I mean, that's Jamal, one of my favorite characters in the book, who says there's nothing. And I was actually, at that moment, I was crying a lot because it was so scary. It was dark, and then obviously in the morning we've discovered actually there was just the river and the hut, and there was nothing else.
We could just go on and on and on, but let's get to the characters in this book.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you do so well in this book is that you make these characters beyond real. I know I have thought about Saba ever since reading this book. I think about Hagos. I think about the judge often. Maybe I'm reading a news article or something. I think about the judge, and I just want to raise my hand and say something like, oh, I have something in addition to say to what you've just said. And the midwife, for goodness sakes,
Yeah.
these are such strong characters. But let's focus on two of the central characters,
Yeah.
Saba and Hagos, their
Yeah.
brother and sister. We're going to try very hard not to give so much away,
Yeah.
because you just have to read this book. Unpack this for us.
I was actually inspired, or I read a poem by Rimbaud. It's called "I is the Other," and I think, to me, it's one of those difficult things to unpack that particular question, because it was the whole book basically.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's why I said without giving too
Yeah,
much away,
it was-
because
it
we
was-
don't want to tell what actually happened at the
Yeah.
end. But let's unpack as much as we can,
Yeah.
so people get a sense of
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, and then they have to read it to get the rest of it.
I hope so. Well, the thing is, so Hagos was born mute,
Yeah.
but it was only discovered he was mute when he started school by the age of 6, when a visiting doctor went to this Eritrean village where they were living before they fled to Sudan. And then, you know, the parents, being poor parents, they've pulled out Hagos and tried to invest whatever little money they had into the education of Saba. So as a result, he grows mute, not being able to read or write. So for me, it was, the whole book was looking from Saba's perspective. And one of the first things that I started with was like, you know, her trying to see the absences in his life, like love and sexuality. And that's why the book can, you know, border on the idea of dealing with taboos and stuff like that. And so what happens was, you know, the more she thought about those things, the closer she became to him, you know, and the more she started to see him, you know. And I love the way he said, like, when she started to hear him. And that was, for me, important, because in our culture, once you're disabled, you become invisible, right? And for him, he was absolutely visible through his action, because he had a language, you know. And it was what was exciting for me was to discover, for Saba to discover Hagos's language, you know. And that's why the book is titled "Silence is My Mother Language," because I honestly do believe, like, there are alternatives to speaking in our body languages, the way we deal with each other. So this one, you know, by the end of the book, they were getting closer and closer. And in my mind, I wasn't no longer sure whether I was working with Saba or Hagos, you know, because the two became I is the other, you know.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a short break now. And when we come back, we'll continue the discussion on being seen and being heard.
Hey guys, making music for you is so easy for me to do. But you know what else is super easy to do? Linking your NI into your Glow line by dialing *109*NIN hash. Or I can call 109 from my Glow line and follow the instructions. And if I don't want to call, I can text my NI into 109. I can even visit glowworld.com/NIN. And what if you've forgotten your NIN? All you have to do is dial *346# and Glow will help you remember it. Someone may ask, what if I haven't registered? All you have to do is go into the nearest Glow World and we'll help you register. It's that easy. So don't get disconnected from all of the amazing voice and data offers from Glow. Linking your NI into your Glow lines is simple, safe, and 100% free with zero hassles.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Literati on News Central, and we have with us Sulaiman I could never pronounce that right.
I like Addonia. Do you say Addonia?
Addonia.
I say Addonia. What do you say?
No, sometimes I say Adonai, and sometimes I say Addonia,
you know what? It's like I love it when people pronounce my name the way they want to pronounce it. I honestly, I love it.
Okay, I'll just stick to Sulaiman then. All right then. And we're talking about the book, Silence is My Mother Tongue. Now, we were talking earlier about, you made a comment that when you are disabled in your culture, you almost become invisible. Now, let's start with being mute, Hagos being mute. Tell us about that choice.
I don't think it was a choice. I think it came to me, and Hagos really came to me mute. You know, you walking around and you conceiving ideas, and then suddenly those characters come to you. And I'm one of those writers who actually, once I open the door of my imagination, I really welcome characters the way they are. And Hagos was like that. He came to me mute. But I think then what becomes is that his muteness is larger than him. It says a lot of things about our society, you know, in particular the way we are, the way we Eritrean, Ethiopian, and I see it across African as well, like all my friends, is that we are told to, you know, we know being taught to express ourselves, our true self, right? We have this ideal man, this ideal woman, or this how the society wants us to be, and so we just progress on that path, right? And so that's for me a notion of muteness, you know, a notion of imprisoning yourself. And so it was larger than that. So it went beyond Hagos. It's about, you know, holding on the secret. I mean, Hagos gets abused by his uncle, and his uncle knows, you know, he's abusing him because even if he were being able to talk, he won't be able to tell on what's happening. So, you know, I wanted to deal with all these things as well around Hagos.
And then there is Saba hearing him and seeing him. Again, I just need you to unpack that.
I think for me, I was working with these individuals, and I have a notion that in society we have a language. In a society we have the way we make love. In the society we have a very restricted idea of how we define our sexuality, for example. But then once I got to that intimate heart between Hagos and Saba, what I realized actually both of them were redefining everything I was learned in the society, right? I was taught by the society. And so for her, she discovered, oh my God, Hagos can't speak, but I could see things in his eyes, you know? And like I was telling you before, like I would sit in cafes for hours sometimes. I would just watch people. And I think I've developed this idea like of actually sometimes I see someone walking past and I feel intense emotion because I feel I read something in their body expression. So for Saba it was like that. It's this idea like how to learn to see the unseen, you know, how to teach yourself to observe things that are so small and detailed in each other. And that's how they become, you know, he becomes someone who's able to talk, but the rest of society not being able to hear him.
Now, in the midst of this beautiful, this beautiful relationship is set in a lot of chaos and suffering and loss and lack and all the things that we would imagine would characterize a place like a refugee camp. How do you relate with that experience now, knowing that it's not just a thing in the past, but it's an ongoing feature of who we are as a people?
It obviously saddens me. That's the first thing, and it's triggering. You know, it brings a lot of emotion because I think back, for example, to how my life ended up being like, you know, I mean, I came to the UK. I was sent by my mom when I was 15 as an unaccompanied minor refugee to London, and the thing for me, the greatest thing about everything is I would sometimes think I would give everything back to have my mom or my grandmother's love, you know. And so I look at those people and I see them moving, but you know, they moving with memories. They moving with the love, also the loss of love that they had, and a loss of love that you could have experienced or would have experienced had you stayed in one place is actually something you carry with you all the time. I still carry it in my body, you know. And so that's the thing. It's like our bodies, develop. It develops its own language of expressing the traumas of this absence, you know. So what I did in Brussels is I founded a creative writing academy to teach refugees and asylum seekers. So we decided, right, because it's one of the things I wish I had when I was in London, to be able to express myself, to go to a place, because of this idea that not being able to talk, you know. So I wish I had this ability of writing, expressing my thought and my feelings, and so that's what we do. We they come to my class, and some of them write science fiction, some of them write memoirs, some of them write fiction, whatever. So it's definitely something that keeps moving. It affects me, but I think I just develop ways of dealing with it, like we all do, right?
Another running theme in this book, and someone actually made the argument to me that this book at its core is a feminist book. Would you agree with that assessment, or would you say, whoa, that's far out? And when we come back from the break, we'll take up from there, and you would tell me if that was also intentional when we come back.
Can you see me now? We're just having a good time, and I'm feeling so good tonight.
Where you did?
I dey come now, you go see me now. You go.
Call your party and everybody, yeah. Make we start to the corner.
Where you did now?
You go see me now.
Everybody they dance.
Where you did now?
Oh, you go see me now.
You want
I'm fine, sir. Even me, I surprised.
Hey, where you at?
Hello, how are you?
Tell us one truth nobody knows.
I like to steam it from my mama pot.
Glow, the best data plans in town. Dial *777#.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're still on Literati, and we're having a very nice discussion with Sulaiman, talking about the book Silence is My Mother Tongue. And just before the break, the question I was asking was, is this book a feminist novel? Okay, and let me explain a little bit more of what the argument to support that is. The female characters, all of them, with their flaws, their strengths, there's so much nuance about them that frames even their vulnerabilities as almost glowing qualities in itself. And that same nuance is not given to the male characters. We see a switch in what we usually get, particularly of books of African origin, where the male characters have all the nuance and all, but here it's the female characters that have that. Was that intentional? Is this a feminist novel?
I would love it. No, if it's a feminist novel, I would be proud of it. I'm an ally, right? But when you write a book, you really don't write it with intentions, right? Really, when I disappeared, I mean, like I said, I've really disappeared with the characters, and I was working with each character and going deeper and deeper, and trying to get. So what happened at the start, for example, the first when I started the book in 2008, 2009, Saba was a character I just couldn't deal with, because I felt, oh my God, one of the questions I asked, is it because I'm a male author trying to write a woman? And then what I did, I think it's beyond that. I just didn't, at the time, even though I've published a novel already, I don't think I was a writer, because I wasn't able to transcend, I wasn't able to transcend my gender, my sexuality. I was having all these barriers inside my head, and so I went in destroying all the barriers between the conscious and the subconscious, and trying to just, to arrive at this place when I'm at my desk, I'm able to transcend and write all characters equally as human beings. It might sound a cliche, but that's the reality of writing. So no, I don't think I had any intention, but could also be with the fact that I was brought up by women, right? In Sudan, for example, my compound was full of women who were suffering, who were rising, falling. You know, I was a silent kid. You know, I wasn't talkative. I felt silent for a long time, and my grandmother, who brought me up, allowed me that silence. So I was seeing all those things happening around me, the unfairness of of the society, the war the society was waging against women. You know, so those are women who were dear to me. Who, when I was sick, they treated me, they loved me. So all these elements, they come to your head, and I think you realize that actually women are not just women, they're human beings. And once you write women as human beings, I think your whole work really moves beyond the predictable writing of the other. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's so beautiful to get involved with these characters. Now the issues of identity and home.
Yeah.
This struggle for identity, particularly on the African continent, and trying to be one thing defined by this particular character, is something you explore in this book. Is that also something you've had to deal with in your own life experience?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you move around, like the way I did, It's the same with language, for example. I don't think I have a mother tongue, because I've been moving from Tigrinya, from Amharic when I was very young, Tigrinya, Arabic, English, and now learning Dutch or French. And I came to a point where actually I'm comfortable with this idea of not having a mother tongue, of actually living in an imperfect, working with an imperfect language, making it my own, and dealing with it in my own way, and I think the same thing with home. Like before, a long time ago, I was thinking, oh my God, I wish I was back home. I wish, but then I asked myself, what is home to me anymore, So I've given up on the idea of home. I have given up on the idea of identity as well. I honestly, I don't have, because I think I've been in exile since I was 2. I see it with my Nigerian friends, for example. They've got a strong affinity to Nigeria. And sometimes I wish I had that, but I don't have that with Eritrea or Ethiopia. This affinity to a flag. I'd rather fall in love with people and connect to people. And so I've come to a point where I look beyond borders. I look at what connect me to you. It's not your being Nigerian, but what, we're having this nice conversation, and I feel connection, and it feels like that, So I've replaced everything with something that is imperfect, and that is I don't really have any identity or religion or or even trying to I think we're becoming like people forced to define ourselves. Even sexuality, you have to be gay or bisexual or straight or this and that. And I think it's much more beautiful when you just open your body to a lot of experiences as well.
I think that's a poignant theme, again, going through the book. And that's why I started off by asking you, how much of this is an autobiography? And you said, well, you explained it. It's fiction. It's fictional, but it was set somewhere. Yeah. But you do realize that with every question, you've been explaining how this essentially is, because one of the.
But what does it mean, autobiography? I mean, that's what. What is it?
Okay, well, technically, here we go, because your previous response hammered on the idea of not sticking to one definition of what a thing is. I guess what we're getting at is, or what I'm getting from the discussion, and again, I could see that, and let me sound a bit like Saba. I could hear that, and learning now to watch people. It seems a lot like this book has come from, and you said it took 10 years to arrive at this, so it makes sense that a lot of you is present in this.
A lot of them is present in me.
In you, exactly.
That's why I say I wrote this book, but this book really rewrote me. Really. I came out of this book with different Sulaiman. I came out and I thought to myself, okay, I finished, but then I didn't know myself. And that's because a lot of them is in me. and vice versa. You know, you enter this relationship where I lost friends, I lost families, because you know I've just was totally focused on the book, and then I allowed myself to be a page for my characters as well.
Now this is a stunning thing. Like if we weren't on the show, I'd probably just sit and stare at you, because that's a stunning thing, that not only have you put yourself in here, you've also taken from here, and also it's not a fixed temporal relationship. It's something that's even ongoing.
Yeah.
So we're going to see this relationship play out in whatever it is that you're doing next.
Absolutely. I'm going to do, my second book is about walking, and I'm going to write as I walk, and it's about two poets, but I'm not going to say more.
Oh, well, I think we're still stuck on trying to unpack and demystify what to me is a spectacular book.
Thank you so much.
I'm on it again for the second round of it, and I'm seeing things I missed the first time going through the book. It's a fantastic book, I kid you not. It's a wonderful piece of literature, and on behalf of everyone who's read it and hasn't even read it, I say thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I had great times. Thank you.
Yes, and I thank you for being on the show today. That's it. That's what our time would let us. Join the conversation, #NCLiterati. Until next time, I'm signing off, Joseph Ike on Literati. Thank you.